In this lesson, we'll learn how to use custom fonts with text objects. On the screen, I've got two different text objects, one with the text foo and the other with bar. Both of the text objects use the system.nativeFont constant to determine the font for the text object. This constant will load a default font when using the text object. We're not only stuck to the default font, we can use fonts that are loaded in the system or fonts that we include within our application. We'll start by creating a variable that detects the platform that we're working on. Here, we're using the getInfo method of the system object to return the current platform. We'll use this information within a ternary operator to set the font. For the font variable, we'll create a set of parens that checks for which system we're working on. So if the platform is not Android, we'll have one solution, and if it is, we'll have another. So here, if the platform isn't Android, then we'll use Helvetica Light. Otherwise, we'll use system.nativeFont. Now, we'll substitute system.nativeFont at line 13 with font. Head to the simulator and reload. And now we can see that Helvetica Light is loaded instead of system.nativeFont. We can use external fonts distributed with our projects. Within my project folder, I've got an external font called Comica Axis, represented by comicax_.ttf. To use this font with my project, I need to adjust the build.settings file. Here, I've highlighted the lines that allow me to use the Comica Axis font within my project. You'll notice that under the plist entry for the iPhone, there's an entry called UI App Fonts, and it's equal to a table that has the file name for the font that I wish to use. You don't need to have a setting like this for Android. You can simply include the font and call it by name. If I take a look at the font within FontBook, the name of the font, as I'll use it within the application, is called Comica Axis. So you'll want to take a look at the name here in the title bar. That's what you'll use when you actually want to use the font with a display object. So going back to the code, I'll create another variable called font and set it equal to Comica Axis. And that's, of course, if the platform is not Android. And I'm just doing that for illustrative purposes. Now I'll substitute out the constant for the font and then reload. And there's Comica Axis being used with the second text object. Now, be mindful of the fact that fonts do have licenses, and you need to make sure that you've got a license to use a font with your application. If you're curious to know what fonts are distributed with iOS, you can head to iosfonts.com and you'll get a list of iOS fonts included with the most current version of the iOS SDK. And each of these names is what you would type into the font name field. This ends our lesson on using custom fonts.